everyone, it's Eliana and I have a card to share with you today. I am taking a break from using pattern paper and I wanted to use this wonderful Altenew washi. This is the Nebula one, which is really wide so you can cover an entire card front panel with it. So I'm just trying to get it onto the front of a card base and I'm going directly onto it. And I'm using my L-shaped ruler from my Creative Corners to flatten everything out. Once I get everything flattened out, I'm just going to use my scissors to trim it out and I'll be all set to go. I did several of these panels just because it was fun putting the washi on. So I did use the Galaxy and the Nebula. The Nebula is the one that has all the colors on it and the Galaxy is the more monochromatic one. For my images, I'm going to be using this Lawn Fawn Winter Sky stamp set, and I thought it would be perfect to have these little critters looking up at the sky. I'm using some Neenah Solar White or some Solar Crest cardstock, and I'm stamping it in my mini MISTI with some Gina Amalgam ink. It is Copic friendly, and so I'm just using that to stamp. I'm not worried too much about getting a good image because I'm going to go back and do some overstamping later. I'm going to start off by using three colors. I'm using E23, E25, and E31. And I'm starting off with the lightest one, which happens to be the E31. And I just colored in the whole image, and then I'm using the medium color and I'm just flicking towards the middle. I do go off camera in just a little bit, but I'll come back and do the other bear so you'll be able to see it a little bit better. Normally I have a monitor in front of me, but I was so into coloring these images that I wasn't paying attention. And you can kind of see on the other side that I did do a practice run with some other colors, and I thought the bear came out too dark, and so I ended up just omitting one of those darker colors. So once again, I'm coming in and coloring the entire image with the E31, and then I'm just flicking the medium color towards the middle. I'm not too worried about doing shading. I'm just doing, I think it's called spotlight. So you just have the middle be a little bit lighter. So I'm just keeping it simple because it is night and I don't think these bears would have had a shadow anyways. So I'm coming in with the darker color and just doing a little bit around the edges, and then I take the medium color and I just blend it in a little bit more, and then I use the light color to blend everything together. And I'm not going to do the whole bear, I'm just going to show you each step. Now for the scarf, I'm using R14 as my base color, and for some reason the reds are a lot easier to blend, so it made it really easy. For my medium color, I'm using R27, and I'm just going around the sides and where there's a crease and on the bottom of the scarf. And once I get that medium color, I'll go in with the dark, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit to the very edges. I'm not too worried about blending it in yet. And then I'll go back in with the medium color again. And then I'll use the light color just to color it all in, and it's all blended really smoothly. So now I have all my images cut, and I did do the fox, but I'm not showing the coloring here. I'm going to put my panels back into my mini MISTI. I haven't moved my stamps, and now I'm using my VersaFine Clair to darken up the image. I really like doing this and then embossing because I think it really makes the images pop. I do this with almost every image that I color. And once I have all of those stamped out with my VersaFine Clair, I'm just going to add some Brutus Monroe ICICLE, and I'm just going to heat emboss that. Once it's all heat embossed, I'm going to take the coordinating dies and I'm going to just line them up, and I'm going to run it through my Altenew Mini Blossom. All I did was cut my panels straight in half, and then I just ran them through real quick. Now for my Hillside, I am using the Fawn Hillside borders. They're stitched. And I'm just creating somewhere for my critters to sit. I've taken a sentiment from that same stamp set and I've lined it up on the bottom of the MISTI. So I've just pushed the sentiment all the way straight down, and then I don't want the sentiment straight on the bottom, so I just pulled up the piece of cardstock up just a little bit so that when I pick up the stamp, it's not exactly on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and add some embossing powder to that too, just so that it is all consistent. There is a little bit of tape residue on the from where I had the purple tape, and so I'm just removing that with a brush. Now that it's all embossed, I'm going to put my layers together. I did use some foam tape to layer up each one of the hillsides, and now I'm adding it to my card panel. And I did forget that because this is washi, the tape does not stick to it, and so I'm just adding some mixed media glue from Thermoweb, and I'm just going to add it to the foam, and when it dries it will stick to the washi tape. So now that I have that all lined up, I'm going to add my elements. I did color some trees. The tree colors that I used are YG17 and G07. I didn't film that part, so I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to add my trees. I am using some foam, and you do have to layer your foam. And once that's complete, now I want to add my Santa up at the top, and so I've just put my card back into the MISTI, and I'm just putting the stamp where I want it. Now the foam is a little bit taller than the MISTI, so I'm using the bar magnet to hold it in place. I did try stamping with StazOn because StazOn is supposed to stay on anything, but I found that it just stayed wet, and so I decided to use embossing powder. And so I went ahead and prepped it because I didn't want any of the powder to stick where it's not supposed to. And I went back to my VersaFine Clair. I did find that my VersaFine Clair was getting a little bit dry, and so I did have to stamp this multiple times. And the washi does have some texture to it. It's a slight texture, and so I had to emboss this a couple of times just to get a solid image. So I'm using my Brutus Monroe Raven embossing powder, and because it has no wax in it, it does melt really fast, and so it doesn't warp your card. So I'm going to put this back into the MISTI, and I'm going to do another layer of embossing powder, and so I'm stamping it again with my VersaFine Clair. And the embossing powder does have a little bit of an orange peel texture to it when it melts, and so I found a way to fix that little orange peel by doing multiples. And now anywhere where there's a divot from the embossing powder, I am just coloring it in with an embossing pen and just adding more embossing powder to that, and then it makes it really nice and smooth. You do need to clean off your embossing pen when you do that because it does stain the tip of your pen, but it'll come off when you just write on a piece of, scratch paper. Now to add a little bit of sparkle, I'm going to color in the scarf with my clear Wink of Stella, and I did notice that I had colored outside of the lines with my red Copic, and so I'm just using a gel pen to fix my mistake. And that is all. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Have a great day.